call this governing board meeting to order. Will everyone please be seated so we can begin? All righty. I'm going to call meeting to order. The roll call. Ms. Humphries, will you please read the roll call?
President Osborne.
Here.
Vice President Holcomb.
Here.
Member Spear.
Here.
Member Kazi.
Here.
Member Gresham.
Here.
All are present.
All righty. Can I invite up the students from Madison Park to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Will everyone please stand? And Mr. Garduniel, will you lead them up and join us in the pledge? You want to just come in the little half circle here? Anywhere is fine.
Anywhere you want to be. Okay.
You are starting. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
I will second.
All right. So Mr. Holcomb with a second by Ms. Spear. Please vote.
I vote aye.
The motion has been approved. Do we have a need for executive sessions? Seeing none. Dr. Guerin, you want to give the superintendent's report?
Thank you, President Osborne, members of the governing board, cabinet, and guests. It's hard to believe the first quarter has come to a close. I hope everyone had a restful, fun fall break. I want to give a thank you to Madison Park, their teacher and students, for their incredible exhibit of STEAM projects. I love hearing from the students as they described their work with such enthusiasm. I wanted to jump in and participate, but did not want to do the sheep brain dissection. I could maybe skip that one. You can see the photos though. But there's a lot of passion and energy around our STEAM programming, so I'm so pleased and proud of our Madison students. Discover Madison provides prospective parents an opportunity to tour our amazing elementary schools by school bus. I'm pleased to announce that our Discover Madison tour is full, and is so full that we had to add a third bus. We have a wait list, so we are looking to try to plan another event potentially in January to recruit some more and to help families that are on that wait list. Madison Rose Lane is participating in Love Our Schools Day this Saturday. This is a great community service project where community members come, gather, and help improve a campus. I'll be attending this event, stopping by on Saturday, October 15th. It starts from 7:30 a.m. and goes to 12 p.m. And there's going to be a light breakfast hosted by the Rocket Boosters. They're going to work on the snack shack, assembling picnic tables, garden planters, and getting the secret garden ready for fall planting. So bring your shovel and show up. It's always a great fun day. Parent-teacher conferences are fast approaching. Mark your calendars, October 19th, 20th, and 21st. Please check with your school website and classroom teacher for more information. We have been making significant progress with hiring any of our openings. We are having another hiring fair on October 26th from 4 to 6 p.m. right here at district office. So please check out our website for any information. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you. We'll start with Ms. Gresham. We'll do you first for board member reports. Anything to report, Ms. Gresham?
Only that we just had a successful district-hosted cross-country meet, and so that's why I'm on the phone. We just finished. So good job to all of our runners. Thank you.
Thank you for doing double service. Mr. Holcomb, anything to report?
Yeah, I just want to, following up on the fact that we had a sellout for the Discover Madison. Not only we have at the Madison, the next concert is coming up. The Pink Floyd concert is going to be a sellout as well. It is hitting it. And the Madison Education Foundation had a board meeting yesterday. Really excited about the upcoming events that they're planning, getting the MOU signed with the district and them. But also the first event is the dinner and movie night, where they're showing the movie Luca. And if you haven't gotten it, it's no charge, but they're having people reserve seats basically for the movie. And as of yesterday morning, out of the 908 seats, I think they're in Madison, there were over 810 reservations already, and there will be multiple food trucks and that too. So it's going to be a great community event, just to bring the community together. And that's all I have.
All right, Ms. Spear.
Thank you. I just wanted to congratulate and express my appreciation to all of our students from Madison Park who came to show us a little bit about their classes and encourage all of those students to definitely consider engineering as a career. There is a need, and obviously these students have an aptitude. So I wanted to encourage them to look at the engineering programs at our state universities and really kind of think about what might be ahead for them. And that's all I have. Thank you.
In particular, the really good programs at U of A.
Yeah, it's only second, I think, to NAU's.
All right, Ms. Kazi.
Mr. Chair will be happy to learn that I was at the University of Arizona this weekend for Family Weekend. I have a Wildcat in the family, so. I just wanted to share that it's always a pleasure on Tuesday nights to come from the Phoenix Boys Choir, where I get to listen to the very young choristers singing. They're always a little rambunctious, to travel to the Madison Governing Board meetings when we have student showcases. It is such a joy to see such extraordinary learning everywhere. And Mr. Garduno, I just have to say thank you. Your students just demonstrated extraordinary mastery of the content they were sharing with us tonight. I'm so excited to learn that you're using Project Lead the Way, because I think it's extraordinary program that really helps prepare students for what's next, especially for those who are interested in going on to higher level engineering in high school and beyond. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. And Ms. Spear. I have nothing to report. All right, now on to calls to the public. We do have some calls to the public. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and since we have quite a few, that limit will be strictly enforced. And just so the public knows, because you're not speaking on any agenda item, we cannot respond, answer questions, those things. We can only refer the matter to the superintendent. So first up, Bella Denise Viner, can't quite make that the last.
Bella Denise Viner. I'm sorry.
Come on up. And on deck, we will have, looks like Allison Van Wide. Please come up and welcome.
Good evening. My name is Bella Denise Ceballos Viner. The reason why I'm here tonight is because as a advocate for the parents in our community, through an organization called Padres Unidos, we represent over 5,000 families who are concerned of the information that are being sent to our children, are sent home or given to our children, especially when it comes to the pronouns. And this is something that is coming to my attention from the Hispanic families as well as from the American families. And I just want to express my concern because it's something that has been going on for a while now. It appears that the parents' rights are being violated. And I believe that regardless of whatever rules we are setting up here in our school districts, that the parents need to be notified and that the parents' decision needs to be respected. Many of our children are coming home confused. 2 weeks ago, I spoke with a family whose child was just hospitalized for mental illness because she was introduced this confusion of whether she should call herself a he, she, them. And when she finally told the parents, I don't want you to call me by my female name anymore, and the parents refused to, the child turned on the parents. It came to the point that she had to be hospitalized in a mental health. Now the parents are being denied seeing their daughter because they said, if you don't call her by what she wants to be called, then you are going to lose the right of being a parent. And I think being in America, that is unacceptable. I come from the Dominican Republic. I've been living in this state for 42 years. I came here because I wanted freedom. And I think many of us, immigrants that come to the United States, to the promised land, for freedom of speech, for the parental rights, I think that we should be respected. And regardless of what being introduced, regardless of what the pressure is happening right now, I stand here to let you know that I stand firmly to represent the parental rights of the parents here in Arizona. Thank you.
Hi, members of the board, parents, and supporters. Really grateful to be able to speak tonight. Thank you.
Can you move your microphone up a little closer? Thank you.
Okay.
Hard time hearing you.
Is this being recorded by the board? Okay. I'm a parent. I'm going to read because I'm not very good at speech making. I'm a parent of a beautiful child who knows who she is but may feel uncomfortable from time to time, as is natural for a 14-year-old. Since enrolling at Madison 1, we've had some issues with surveys and an uninvited counselor attempt to come between me and my daughter. This began with a "This Is Me" questionnaire. You may or may not be familiar with this. I'm not sure the whole board is. Asking what pronoun my daughter would want to be addressed by and if this is okay to use in front of her parents. Although the expressed aim is inclusion, the explicit reality of this question is exclusion of the parents. Not only is the question inappropriate, personal information with nothing whatsoever to do with music and learning, it is an attempt to create a barrier between the student and the parent. I have brought this to the attention of the school principal as well as your district superintendent. Your principal saw nothing wrong with these questions and was adamant about the good intentions of the teacher. Your superintendent was clearly disturbed, but like the principal referred to it as a misstep. I am here to tell you this is not just a misstep. This is a federal agenda to create a wedge between children and their families. This will take down the public school system. Your job is to educate children, not become their confidant or counselor. Your job is not to insert your ideas into children's heads. The school is here to teach these children how to think, not what to think. The whole child program, otherwise known as Ruler, sounds so innocuous and even so progressive and caring. This is nothing more than behavioral modification. I'm just, do you want me to keep going?
Just wrap it up in the next couple seconds.
The parents are responsible for emotional intelligence, not the school. And we're coming before this school board as a wake-up call. And I think everyone needs to wake up, parents included. School board needs to listen to the parents and have complete transparency. So thank you for letting me speak.
Cherie Sapier. Going once. All right, we'll move on to Alan Chang, or I'm sorry, Ms. Taper.
Yes. Hi, I'm so sorry. I had a very interesting conversation about. You can't hear me? No, I'm hearing feedback. Oh. I'm sorry. I don't know, but I'm running out of time. Hi, everyone. My name is Sherry Sapir. I just had a very interesting conversation with Mr. Fontes about the exact same issue that was brought up to you. We're really concerned as parents, and I don't have children necessarily in this district, but as a general concept, when we have teachers who bring surveys in front of our children, and just like we have open enrollment, we're going to have open involvement moving forward. I think the school boards understand that in the last couple of years. We're interested in what's going on all across the board because our children are the peers of children from other districts. So we can't just maintain it in a certain zip code. We need to make sure that all of the children around are held to the same standards, and the parent involvement is something that you understand is important. When it comes to that question from the music teacher, the question about pronoun is something that is possibly, and we're looking into civil litigation, is violating 15117. When it comes to survey, you're not supposed to ask children regarding their sexual behavior and attitudes. I would argue that asking a child about their pronouns is for the explicit intent of knowing what their sexual behavior and attitude is. Otherwise, I don't understand the question, and we would love some enlightenment about this. And if the teacher finds the time to maybe address this publicly or specifically to the parent that brought that concern, that would be fantastic, because at some point you have to understand, for us to come and speak for 3 minutes and move on with our lives, we cannot have a true understanding of both sides. As I said, I just spoke with Mr. Fontes. It's really fascinating actually to understand the other side and why they think that this is appropriate. But the bottom line is that we have too many parents who are concerned about this, and at some point we have to understand that we need to address these parents as well. Not everybody is accepting this open discussion regarding children's sexuality. Not all of us are comfortable with it. The school board needs to understand that. The district needs to understand that. And you need to have better oversight as to the questions that are being asked of your students, because there might be a violation of the law and you're going to be liable for it. And we're just putting you on notice about that. When it comes to the Parents' Bill of Rights, which is really the biggest concern with that questionnaire, when she's asking if she can share that pronoun preference with the parents, that's a clear violation of Parents' Bill of Rights, ARS 1602. Why would you encourage a child to withhold information from their parents? Now, you can argue that's not asking them to withhold. Well, that plants the seed. Thank you. That plants the seed in the mind's child that they may withhold information from their parents. It's not acceptable. Even though Mr. Fontes just told me, well, some parents are not accepting of the child's sexuality. I understand that, but you know what? I have 3 C-sections. I have a scar proving that. These are my children. And I don't want any individual in the world to have higher authority. So please consider to open it up for a town hall. Stop having these 3-minute conversations. Talk to us.
Please wrap it up.
Thank you, sir. It's wrapped up. Thank you.
Alan Chang, please.
May I cede my time to Mr.
No.
Well, members of the school board, thanks so much for taking the time to really hear all of us here. I have a niece here in this Madison County, and I have the same concerns. As a doctor of 20 years, what has been a big concern, and really for all of the parents, is to really see how the suicide rates in younger children has gone up. I'm sure you all know this, because you all have to deal with it as well. But speaking with colleagues in especially California, we have children who are now in the elementary schools who are now committing suicide. Right now, I just read that Amazon is under a lawsuit because they're selling suicide kits. I mean, you're nodding your head, so you understand this. How does this begin? How does this develop? And this is where it's very slippery to me, when we're actually talking about the initial confusion from the gender pronouns. And it's very unfortunate, because I think it begins with a good premise, trying to be inclusive. But when we're being inclusive and excluding the parents, what happens? Well, I think we're watching it. I think we're seeing it. We're seeing suicide rates go up. Why has that not happened before? What's going on here? So I understand that you all have children here. You all want to help the children. That's why you're on the school board. That's why you're teachers. We appreciate that so much. What can we do from here? What can we do to protect the children? This is what we all want. Can we work together? This is what we really want to be able to do, is to be able to protect, to educate, to support everyone. But we have to understand the points that cause the beginning of a mental confusion that brings either child to a psychological mental hospital or to the unfortunate state of suicide, or to these, now we're seeing there's all of these hospitals like Vanderbilt that are actually allowing children, sometimes even without consent of the parents, to have these surgeries. And then we're having suicides after 3 years, 5 years after. You're seeing this in the news. This is not new. Please look into your hearts. Consider. Thank you.
All right. Jen Treadwell. And then Lisa Reinhardt. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jen Treadwell, and like so many who are here, I am a very concerned parent. I want to start by reading ARS 1602 from the Parental Guidance. It says, any attempt to encourage or coerce a minor child to withhold information from the child's parent is grounds for discipline of an employee of this state, any political subdivision of this state, any other governmental entity, or any other institution except for law enforcement personnel. Now, I'd like to start by saying that I've never seen a candidate for school board who runs and says that they don't care about children. They won't do what's best for children. They won't try to keep children safe. Well, parents are waking up all over this country to the fact that a lot of school board candidates lie. They don't really care about our kids. In fact, they have plans for our kids they know we object to, and that's why they don't share their plans with us. Time will tell when it comes to this school board. I'm not here to judge, but I'm certainly here to sound the alarm. There is time to do the right thing for our kids. The good news is it only requires that this school board follow Arizona law and do a few things that regular people already know to do, like tell the truth, be transparent, respect the wishes of the parents that you work for. Our children are not lab animals to be experimented on. Our children are not your children. You are charged with their education on specific topics and their safekeeping, and then you return them to us, their parents. They are not to be used to test social theories on. They are not to be coaxed or conned or subscribed into junk science theories in an effort to add credibility to someone's insane social engineering agendas. We are here tonight to protest something that is illegal, that everyone knows is illegal, that the teacher who did it knew was illegal. It is time to establish and enforce rules that clearly keep teachers away from grooming our children, that keep teachers out of their personal lives, out of the sexual lives, and out from between them and their parents, most importantly. It is beyond objectionable for a teacher to solicit children, encourage children, and participate in children actively keeping secrets from their parents, especially on such an issue. If you want to twist and turn a kid, you're going to have one of your own. And may God help to protect that child from your intentions. If you want to twist and turn one of our kids, you're going to have to come through all of us first.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, Dr. Guerin, can you please look into the matter? And if you would meet with the families to the extent possible, that would be much appreciated. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot one person.
Good evening.
Welcome.
My name is Lisa Reinhardt, and my niece started at Madison No. 1 Middle School this year. And on the first day of school, she was given this survey by her music teacher, and it included these questions that you've heard. What are your pronouns? He, him, she, her, they, them. Can I use this pronoun in front of your parents? Yes or no. How do you like to receive praise from your teacher? Answers include private note from me to you, private email from me to you. So on the first day of school, 150 10 to 13-year-olds were taught that when meeting an adult for the first time, they can keep the conversation of an implicitly sexual nature secret from their parents and receive private messages from that adult who praises them. What could possibly go wrong? Do we really want our schools grooming our children for potential exploitation? I'm not saying this teacher this time, but it does create dangerous precedents. It plants division in our families. It gives the child permission to keep secrets from her parents, which opens the door to other kinds of deception and lying that may threaten their safety, all under the guise of inclusivity. But we have to ask, inclusivity in what? The National Institute of Health has estimated the transgender community in America to be between 0.4% to 0.6%. That means with a class reach of 150 students, statistically, there is not even one child in that classroom to whom it applies. Yet it has introduced the idea of transgenderism at a time when children are most vulnerable. Does anyone remember what it's like to be that age? Typically it's awkward, it's uncomfortable to be a teen or a preteen. We used to just call that puberty. Now they want the kids to believe it's gender dysphoria. The questions on the survey could be brushed off, and have been, as not a big deal. But as adults, have we applied our intelligence and foresight to where this leads? Instilling doubt about gender is the first step in a track that leads to pharmaceutical dependence in the form of hormone blockers, chemical castration, which can lead and progress to irreversible surgical mutilation like double mastectomies in healthy young girls and genital mutilation in boys. Even worse, the attempted suicide rate among transgender children is 5 times the rate of their peers. As they get older, it doesn't get better. 41% attempted suicide rate for transgender people versus 1.6% of the general population, more than 25 times greater. Do you want to send our children down such a dangerous
Thank you very much.
I say the schools have a
Thank you very much,
responsibility to not fall for this and to not unwittingly contribute to a lifetime of suffering for our children. Many thanks to all who turned out tonight to take a stand.
As I stated before, Dr. Guerin, will you please interact with these folks?
Absolutely. And I just want to make a comment. I have met with 2 of the speakers, and I'm happy to meet with any of the speakers. I also want to note tonight that we will be having a first read on policy 8.1 JRR, student services. Arizona Statute 15117 requires parent permission for any student survey that falls under a specific category noted in the statute. This policy makes it clear to our staff and parents the district expectation related to surveys. So Madison parents can expect to see surveys in advance and explicitly give permission or not give permission for student surveys. But I would be happy to meet with any parents or community members that are interested.
All right, thank you. Now on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All right, please vote. Ms. Spear, were you first? Who made the motion?
I did.
Ms. Spear and Ms. Kaiser the second.
I vote aye.
Ms. Gresham, you sound a little hoarse. Must have been cheering quite a bit.
Between the cheering, and the dust, I have losing my voice.
All righty. The motion has passed. Why don't we skip, because we do have some folks who may be interested in the board policies, why don't we skip to item 8, and if we can go through the board surveys, or the board view policies. And as we know, these are policies that we get from ASBA after the enactment of new legislation. This year, the legislature was very late in finishing up their agenda, And so we're a little behind the curve in terms of getting the policies out. Dr. Guerin, do you want to introduce item 8.1 and the other policies as we go along?
Certainly. President Osborne, members of the governing board, cabinet, and community, we will be reading first read of policy 8.1, student surveys. Ms. Marshall?
Thank you, President Osborne, members of the board, and members of cabinet. As Dr. Guerin shared, there is new state legislation that pertains to surveys. It is statute 15-117. I don't know if we're pulling that up or. So it amends the current policy regarding student surveys to align with new state statute that includes that districts are required to provide that 7-day notice. Now, you'll see a lot of strike-throughs with the items. These were actually moved to the regulation, and they remain the same that they always were, but these were moved into regulation. And these are the areas where parents would need that 7-day notice prior to that survey being administered. So this is the first read of the new policy, but it is in alignment with the new state statute.
Question, Ms. Marshall. Can you, maybe for the public, describe the difference between a regulation and a policy, just so it's clear that it's not quite so education speak?
Okay, so the policy is pretty much the state statute or federal, any guidance that we would be required to follow. The regulation is how we would follow that policy requirement. So, for example, this policy says that parents would be given a 7-day notice. The regulation, and as you see, all these things that have the strike through have actually been moved to the regulation. And so any surveys that would contain these items would be provided to the parents with a 7-day notice where the parents can opt out of having their child do the survey. So the regulation just guides how we will implement the new law.
And just as a related note, the issue of using pronoun selection, what kind of guidance has, or what kind of directives has the administration done to make sure that this type of survey is not utilized?
So, President Osborne, this type of survey would fall under these requirements. Instead of sending out a survey to all students asking this question, if a student identifies with a different pronoun, we would honor and support that student and work with the family on those needs. So we would not be reaching out and just asking the students about their pronouns. We would explicitly support and collaborate with that family. And so not only is it statutorily required, it is our practice.
Okay, so just to be clear, we're not soliciting, and that's not the policy of the district. Well, we had an occurrence, we've remedied that with...
Yes, the occurrence is not a policy, and it was taken care of.
That's very helpful. Any other questions or comments on this first policy? All right. Next policy, 8.2, teaching about controversial and sensitive issues. Dr. Guerin, will you introduce this item?
President Osborne, members of the governing board, cabinet, and community, 8.2 is the next policy that Ms. Marshall will present, and it is about teaching about controversial or sensitive issues, and it is our first read.
President Osborne, members of the board, and members of cabinet, so you'll see that there are just some minor changes, but it really has the nuance with the terminology that is being used, where before it talked about the teacher's influence on students and, you know, the time that they spend. And now it talks about that the position of a teacher has that responsibility in the formation of the education of the child. it always stated about working with the parents, so that continues. So you'll see that there are no other strike throughs. The policy remains the same for the controversial and sensitive items, but really just reinforcing to the teachers that their responsibility is the education of the children.
Okay. Questions on this policy? Ms. Kazi.
So just to clarify, this is an existing policy that we have some small changes that are being proposed.
That is correct.
Thank you.
And are there any modifications to the associated regulation or just the policy?
There is no regulation with this one.
Thank you. All right, now on to item 8.3, library materials. Ms. Marshall, do you want to just continue?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Osborne, members of the board and cabinet. So again, new legislation that went into effect regarding library materials, the selection and adoption. There will be a policy that we'll bring forward at a later time that's in alignment with that House Bill 2439 about giving parents access. Fortunately, in Madison, we've had an electronic system for several years, so our parents have always had that access to the full library, the books that are available through the library, and then the books that their child checks out. But that is in a different policy. This policy is new state statute for any additional materials that are purchased for the library, that there needs to be a parent review. So very similar to when we do a textbook adoption, and there has been that period of public review for a textbook adoption that now will go in place for library materials. Now, if it's a replacement of existing, again, similar to the textbook adoption, there's that 60-day review period available for the community to see what books are being recommended and have that public review period.
Okay. One related question. I know when we've done textbook adoptions, we've kept the books out, and I think the one thing that we need to make sure that we do a good job is marketing that these are available for review. I mean, when we did a major math adoption, we didn't get one comment, but it's incumbent upon us, I think, to continue to communicate to the public that they have this opportunity and go from there. So that would be my one suggestion. I guess to be memorialized in a policy, but I do think it's a good practice. Ms. Spear.
I will say I did receive through my child's middle school when we had that math adoption an invitation to come and take a look at it in the boardroom. So I do know that we inform our parents. I mean, as a parent, I was receiving that through the school channel. So for what that's worth, I know we do invite parents to come and take a look. So, I think that we do. You can always do better communications. It's like the game of golf. It's not perfect. But, I think that that's something that I want to make sure that our parents do know is to watch for those communications.
So, okay. Any other comments on this policy? Now on to item 8.4, school ceremonies and observances. Is that still you, Ms. Marshall?
Thank you. So this policy, again, was an existing policy, but changes due to new legislation, where in the past there was a moment of silence that was provided. Now the new legislation spells out specifically that this will be a minimum of 1 minute, and but no longer than 2 minutes. And so you'll see the strike through from what was originally in legislation to the blue, and it gives the guidance for that moment of silence for the students. And again, that the teacher does not share with the student what to reflect on during that 1 minute moment of silence, and but that is provided at the beginning of the school day for students.
Okay. Any questions? Maybe we can stay silent for a minute and think about it. All right. Any other comments on any of the policies? If not, we'll move back up to item 7.1, the annual financial report. Dr. Gannon, do you want to introduce this item?
Dr. Osborne, members of the governing board, cabinet, and guests, Ms. Garvey is prepared to present the annual 2022 financial report for the Madison School District.
Welcome.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Guerin and cabinet. Tonight's report is on the annual financial report, which compiles all of the financial data for the prior school year. The reason that it's in October when the school year ended in June is that we do have an additional 2 months in which to close out the school year. So we have the financial records of the school year. We have until August 30th to do that, and then we have approximately this month to compile all the records. Once this report is approved by the governing board, it does get published on the ADE website. There will be a link on our website leading anybody that would like to see it to that page to see it. So this is a review of what is in the report. The report compiles revenues and expenditures. The first page of the report really looks at what is the maintenance and operation, which is our main fund of the district. It's the daily operations of the district, and then our capital funds, which are typically larger in cost or items that have useful lives that extend past a year. These funds are 2 major funds of the school district, as they are funded on a formula amount per state. So when we talk about the basic state funding, it would be maintenance and operations and capital. So as you can see here, 63.5% of our revenue in these 2 funds comes from the taxpayers within the district on the property that is within the district. The next is the state aid, which is $14,333,000, and that's 33.5%. You can see the other almost 3% or 3% comes from county equalization and then investment income. So any money that we do have at the county treasurer's office, we do earn interest on that, on those funds. The next page in the AFR is dedicated completely to maintenance and operation expenditures. And we can look at it a variety of ways, and we can look at it in many, we can break it down. When you look at the actual page itself, it's very numbers based, and it may not tell a story to the general public like it tells to me, because I'm so used to, reading account codes and seeing what things mean. So I'm going to attempt in my next few slides to give a better picture of what those numbers mean and how we look at them. So we look at, if we can just go back one, the M&O is broken into 3 separate categories. So first it looks at program. It looks at regular education, special education, and transportation as the 3 main categories that it's broken down into. We do receive funding based on each of these different categories, based on numbers of students that are in each. And transportation revenue is generated by the number of riders that you have and the miles that you've driven. So you can see that 79.07% of our M&O expenditures, a little over 30 million, is in regular education. 17% of our expenditures are in special education, almost 6.5 million. And then transportation is almost at 1.5 million and comprises the last 3.93% of expenditures. Then another way that this is looked at on the page is it breaks it down by function. So how are these dollars spent according to different functions? So we can see the largest one in maintenance and operations is instruction. So 51.3% of our M&O budget is spent on instruction. It's direct in the classroom. Then you can see our next largest one is 9.7%, which is instruction support. So these are people that work in our media centers. This is professional development. And then we have our staff support. I'll just go up the chain here at 5.9%. Staff support are a lot of our support services that are delivered directly to students. So for example, you have nursing services, you have your occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech services. Those are support for students. So that would be our staff support. Then we have our school administration. You can see that there in purple is 6.2%. Central administration is 9.2%. Maintenance is 13.4%. Transportation is a 3.9%. And then we have non-instructional services up there at 0.4%, 0.4%. That represents the amount that we actually have to spend on maintenance and operations to match for our food service program. We have a requirement that when we receive money in from the federal government and food services, that we have to show that we are also attributing to the serving food to our students. And there's a match that's required of us. So that represents the match for federal nutritional services. Then to that, on this slide, I add the classroom site fund expenditures, which if you wanted to see what they are, and we'll go into that in a minute, but they are on page 3 of the AFR. And the classroom site fund are additional monies approved by the legislature. And here in Madison, we do spend them on certified base pay and pay for performance. But that does get factored in, and it does impact, since I said teacher-based pay, it really goes towards that major operations of our school district. So we include them here because that tells a bigger picture about how are we really spending those funds. So when we include them, because most of those funds go directly to teachers, you can see that the instruction percent goes up. So that raises instruction to 54.4. There's a little bit in staff support and a little bit in instruction support, but other than those are the 3 categories only that get actually we expend money on in the classroom site fund. So the other ones may drop a little bit. Then the other way that we look at it on this sheet is it's by object. So that tells us what type of expenditure, what are we actually purchasing. So we can see that salaries and benefits make up the largest part of our expenditures. They're at $31.5 million, which is 85% of our budget. Next, you can see purchase service at $3.5 million. Then we have utilities at almost $1.9 million, making up 5% of our expenditures. And then our supplies and miscellaneous make up 2.8%, or a little over $1.1 million. And the miscellaneous in there could represent dues or fees, registrations. So that's what comprises that. You can see our total budget in maintenance and operation was $40,649,760. Our total expenditures for this previous year were $38,111,151, bringing us to carry forward of a little over $2.5 million. The carry forward is larger this year, in part due to ESSER funds, because some of the expenditures that would have been paid out of maintenance and operations were allowed to be paid out of ESSER, and we did that. But they will be coming back to maintenance and operations starting this year, just for people to understand that. Then when we look at M&O expenditures, I'd mentioned that 85% is spent on salaries and benefits. So I thought it might be helpful. Well, what does that mean when we actually look at the number of staff? How many is this supporting? So maintenance and operations alone, and these are FTEs, so they're full-time equivalents. So if you may have 270 actually teachers, but part of them are 0.5 or half-time teachers. And when you combine them, the FTE brings it to 249 certified teachers in regular education, 57 in special ed, and of course transportation does not have certified teachers. Well, they may have a bus driver, but we wouldn't count that. So on the classified side, in regular education, we have 94, special ed we have 9, and then in transportation we have 24. So we have a total of 433 employees paid out of maintenance and operations. Total salaries are $22,505,666, and benefits are just shy of $9 million. And then you can see I broke down what makes up benefits, because people often ask me that question, well, what's in benefits? And it's really an employer-related expense, if you want to look at it that way. Some people know it in those terminologies. So you have health insurance at the largest amount there, over $3.2 million. And then we have our FICA Medicare at $1.6 million. ASRs is the state retirement system. The district is required to contribute. It's about 12.4% last year, and the employee must match that as well. And then you see workers' comp, and then we have some other, which is life insurance, short-term disability, employer paid benefits on behalf of the employee. In the AFR, it asks them, well, what is your average teacher salary? And the average teacher salary in Madison last year was $57,149, which was an increase of 1.5% over the prior year. But again, we're using always that 2018 as the base comparison year, and it is up 24.4% since then. The other thing we talk about a lot is, well, how much does a teacher cost? And we can say, well, a teacher costs $76,000, and people say, well, I don't make that much. And that's true. However, whenever we budget, we show an expenditure, we show the related benefits or employee-related expenses that are included, and I broke out the three largest ones. So you can see insurance, retirement, and then the FICA and Social Security. Other things to note in maintenance and operations is professional development. We had almost $133,000 spent. The AFR breaks out specifically what did you expend for gifted pupils. You can see that's at $537,000, and of the $1.4 million or almost $1.5 million spent in transportation, just thought some information could be helpful. So we transport 764 students daily. Total miles driven last year were 503,000, which equates to almost $3 per mile. And I've had a lot of questions about how much does fuel cost. And so last year we did spend $90,974, remembering we didn't even transport the entire year.
Ms. Garvey?
Yes.
Just a question. I mean, it seems like on the transportation side, we're spending a lot of money for very few kids. And I know part of that is we have a lot of out of district, but I think for some future agenda, maybe even after I'm gone, that might not be something to think about strategically about how we're serving, because that just seems like a lot of churning, and I know we have a lot of problems in the neighborhood with everyone dropping off, but it's just something that just kind of raised and I don't know, Dr. Guerin, if your experience from other districts is that.
President Osborne, compared to the number of students we have, it struck me as being low as well.
And I believe that a little caveat to that is that last year we were not allowing open enrollment riders to ride the buses. We weren't accepting some new riders. So it is lower last year than it will be or has been.
Maybe in a Friday report, just give us a sense of kind of the normal average, because that makes more sense, because I think parents were self-regulating those ideas. Ms. Kazi,
I think, if you do the math in your head, 6,000 students, half for open enrollment, you take out Madison Traditional Academy. I mean, those numbers don't surprise me.
Yeah.
Because parents want to drive their kids.
I like my kids drive themselves now. It's even better.
Yeah, I put my kids on the bus very first day of kindergarten. But to that point, we also were dealing with our COVID protocols, and I know a couple of families that didn't want to put their kids on the bus because of for a variety of reasons. So I suspect that just anecdotally, I would expect that number to go up next year, and especially if Simus is still requiring out of district students to be on a bus as condition of the variants, that would also go up. But judging the ridership on the last 2 years, I think is probably a fool's errand, just because it's been so bizarre.
Yeah.
I have a quick comment.
Sure.
Ms. Gresham, go ahead.
Still here. I will just second that, because as a parent, I did drive even though they usually take the bus, I drive during COVID when we went back to school for, I think, the rest of that year. So I know that's probably a lot of parents did that. And also, I just hope that we can encourage, once we do have out-of-district buses and things, that we encourage the parents to use those bus stops and things to encourage more bus riding. Thanks.
Just something to look at, can we get a little more bang for our buck?
Yeah, and a question leads into that. Does the 764 students, I guess last year wouldn't have counted it when we were having out of district students also ride the bus? I mean, Simus, we also offer. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Man, that number. But any analysis, if we're going to try to look at the effectiveness of our transportation, I think has to sort of separate that out because we also, prior to COVID, had also encouraged and let out of district parents know that they could drop their kids at any bus stop and get them transferred into to encourage to try to cut down on the traffic issues. And I think that is something, particularly since we've had this change, that would be worthwhile for us to look at as we're going forward and planning our transportation.
All right, now that Ms. Kazi.
Question on something else.
Yeah, now that I've broken up Ms. Garvey's clear train of thought with a side question, but Ms. Kazi, go ahead.
Well, first of all, thanks for all the detail. Always fabulous. I love numbers. Thank you. But I have a question. So I can't recall if during session this year they finally passed legislation to do the special education study group. Did that finally get passed? I know it's been coming up every single year forever.
I think they increased some of the weights. So they
increased some of the weights. So my question is, so we're looking at 17%. Does that align with the percentage of students that we have that are in special ed? I'm just curious because I assume it's higher. And I'm curious about when, just something I think for us to be continuing to talk to legislators about that. And we are probably less so than other districts. Getting eaten alive to some degree by special ed would be my guess.
Yes. Well, Board Member Kazi, this is the first time we've seen an increase like this in a long time. And we also had a free and reduced lunch weight as well, the poverty weight. So that was some significant movement in those, though I'm sure they're still severely underfunded in regards to what we spend.
Yes, I want to say that our special ed population is around 13%.
All right, please continue.
So the Classroom Site Fund, the one that I mentioned prior that we look at, because so much of it all of it goes towards teacher-based pay and teacher pay for performance. The total expenditures were that 3.4 million, but of that 3.4 million, almost 2.1 million went directly to teacher-based pay. That equates to 12% of teachers' base pay. So of the amount that they get, it's about 12%. When you look at if your average teacher is somewhere around the 50 to 57, it's in the $5,300 to $5,800 of every teacher's out of the Classroom Site Fund. The teacher pay for performance was at 1.3 million, and the average was 33,213 a teacher for that. The next page on the AFR, page 4, is capital expenditures. The capital, this is also where we record what was spent out of the override. So you can see the district additional assistance override, which is capital, funded copiers, the math adoption, instructional aids. Quite a bit of this instructional aids is actually instructional software, library books, technology and software licensing, and then a preventative maintenance project. We look at unrestricted capital, in addition to this, furniture and equipment, staff resource books, and then preventative maintenance items for a total in capital expenditures of $3,265,091. We have bond building, which last year had almost 8.6 million in expenditures. A lot of these things were in planning stages last year, a lot of pre-work, a lot of design, a lot of committee meetings. So there was the lobby renovations for security measures, the Madison number 1 Dining Commons renovation, the Madison Park rebuild, which really got underway right at the end of the school year, some classroom furniture. There was technology in there, and I just wanted to point out at Rose Lane, there was a campus-wide replacement of all smart boards and projectors and AV enhancement equipment or audio enhancement equipment in every classroom. We had AC replacements, some window treatments, security cameras, and we purchased a bus. Our next page on page 5 addresses federal and state programs. You can see our federal projects listed here, total expenditures, and this does not include our ESSER, which are on the next page, but we're almost at 2.5 million. You can see that IDEA Part B, which is our special ed federal funding, which helps to supplement even additional expenditures, was at 1,122,000. All the way down, you can see through E-rate.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Yeah, this is actual expenditures
These are
that are funded,
expenditures.
not the total income.
Right.
Or-
These are
yeah.
expenditures.
Okay, thank you.
And then I just thought this might be a good place to note actually on E-rate. And part of this is you buy it and then you get reimbursed. So you may see the numbers are a little bit different. But our technology department did apply for, and we did receive quite a bit of money in the Emergency Connectivity Fund. We were able to purchase 4,370 Chromebooks and 10 iPads out of that fund. Title I did pay for 40 iPads and an iPad cart. And then we had 19 Chromebook carts paid out of ESSER 1. But really, I just wanted to, that we are always out there looking for alternative funding sources, because had that not come out of E-rate and had we not been quick to apply for that, because they did run out and they started limiting it to high poverty schools, we wouldn't have had this opportunity. So that was, yeah.
So is this American Rescue Plan money? Where did the Emergency Connectivity Fund?
So that was money that was set aside to help address students being able to learn from home. But by the time the federal government got it passed to get the money out, schools were starting to return. Wow. So they redirected monies that you could apply for.
Wow. It's a big grant.
And then yes.
Just kind of odd question. 40 iPads or 10 iPads? Like, why don't we use all one technology, or there's some special purposes?
That was for Madison Park, so I'm going to assume that they were using it in a specialized...
Okay. Not that I'm critical, I just, I'm more a Windows guy.
And special ed sometimes does use iPads for certain students. Okay. And then E-rate projects, we have started. This is just the start. You'll see there are 4 schools listed, but we will be doing another couple schools. Parks will be taken care of, and Meadows in the rebuild. So that's why you won't see them here. But more E-rate dollars that we applied for that will are helping us upgrade our network equipment. So last year we did receive $170,347. And then our federal projects do continue here with our ESSER expenditures. So you can see ESSER 1 and 2, this does finalize the spending for them. And then ESSER 3 at almost 1.6 million. This year, I believe we have somewhere around 1.3, 1.4 million left that we haven't expended. And then we have the expansion for the school safety for the counselor social workers. We had 2 state projects last year. We had results-based funding, and then the rest of the school safety expansion as well, $786,000. Okay, food service is also considered. It is a federal program because they do, the federal government, we do receive money for free reduced students, as well as a little bit for every paid meal. But as we know, last year all students did eat free, and the revenue that we received all came from the federal government. It was $5,252,000. The expenditures were $3,354,000, and food services was did contribute $400,000 towards indirect. So of that revenue, that $400,000 indirect goes to pay the cost of running payroll, hiring people, the electricity for the buildings. So then just a little note down below, they had a very lean staff. It is hard to hire people, as we know, but they had 34 staff members, and they served over 1 million breakfast and lunch throughout the school year. And
so, question, I noticed there's a gap between revenue and expenditures. Where does that, I won't call it profit, but where does that difference go?
So that is Currently, that cash balance goes into your carry forward. It can help to offset the cost of the next year. We cannot actually carry, you're not, by law, you can only have 3 months worth of operating expenditure cash, that equivalent of 3 months of operating expenditures. So this will be a little bit over, but we are anticipating with the return to paid meals this year, we are seeing the carry forward will start to go down, and the ADE audit team will be here in January, and they will look at it. Really, it just goes back into the program to help offset cost of meals, to hire people to buy equipment if that's what you need.
So it stays within the food service program.
Yes.
And walk me through, just as a reminder, because we increased cost a little bit, and part of that was by design because we're spending down some of that carry forward to mitigate.
Okay, yes.
And I may be confusing issues, but
the school lunch went up because the federal government calculates how much each meal should, what the meal cost should be for a paid student. And our paid was so far below where the federal government says that it should be. So we took a smaller step towards closing that gap instead of a large one. And in part, when we recommend too what we can afford, the minimal that we can do, we do take into account the cash that you're going to have so that you know what you have to keep going. So it's used to help project for the future.
Ms. Cosby.
So basically for every, because since we didn't do the increase that was suggested to us by ADE, then we're basically taking the carry forward and that's subsidizing the difference in
it might, but we should still probably have a positive cash balance. It can be used, I want to say subsidized, but it will help operations to continue going.
Okay.
We also received more funding because we also had the food bag or food box program for a long time, and we kept that going all year. And we had a lot of participation with those food boxes that we were paid for as well. So it is because of some of this cash that we were able to, in that regards, yes, subsidize to keep it lower.
So at some point we will hit the proverbial wall.
At some point.
Okay. All right.
And then I believe that we're up to page 7, and that is our other funds expenditures. And these are the other funds that we have within the school district. So we have our instructional improvement and our school plant civic center, which is money from rentals of buildings. We have community education, which certainly is one of our largest at 6.3. And then extracurricular activities, gifts and donations, and then the indirect costs and student activities. And then a couple other items that are noted that they specifically ask us to pull out of the AFR is, did you receive any rewards, discounts, incentives received from credit cards? And we did receive 7,772. We get that because we have switched to trying to pay our vendors online. And part of the program is if you pay the vendor online, you do get money back. And so that is how much we got back last year for trying to switch our vendors to being paid online. We continue trying to do that. Bonds outstanding are $80,670,000. During last year, we did retire $13,205,000. And then there's a little box on there too that shows you our external audit service fee, which was $49,500. Don't expect you to be able to see this page. It wasn't that important, but this is the summary, and this is what gets published. I mean, this is one thing that really will stand out that we put out there. And if you look at all the actual expenditures in the second to last column, they total $89,041,035.
That's operation and capital.
Operation, capital, debt service.
Yeah.
That's all of it. So it includes that $13 million that we paid off in bonds. And then on this page here was added every year, like January, February, the Auditor General comes out with the dollars spent in the classroom report. So just to give us a preview of what that looks like, and to see how we compare to the prior year with our expenditures, you can see the different categories. You can see that instruction went up, which is classroom. It went up 0.3%, so that is up higher. You can see the categories that went down. Not surprised that food service went up, given that every meal was free. We had much higher participation and the food boxes. And then our student support was the other category that went up. And that was probably because of the influx of monies and the targeted towards the social workers and the counselors. So that's what impacted that. And you can see the other changes in the percent is down there. So that's just something that we do monitor and we look at. And I just wanted to share that with you. It does only total 54 million, because the other thing is it doesn't include every expenditure. It doesn't include debt service. It doesn't include furniture and equipment. So it's very specific to what it does include. And in our case, it's about 54 million. And that is it. Are there any other questions?
Thank you for a very comprehensive report. And it seems like you can do this right off the top of your head, which the only other person I've ever seen is the legislative budget director who can remember 5 budgets back, but I think you're on par with his mathematical skills.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I have a quick comment.
Oh, Ms. Gresham, go ahead.
I also just want to thank Ms. Garvey and for putting this in terms everyone we can understand. And public school finance is a doozy, so we always appreciate her and her team for everything you guys do. So thank you.
All right. If there's any other questions, we'll move on to future meetings. Dr. Garnon, do you want to plan our social calendars?
Absolutely. Keeping the board very busy. Dr. Osborne, members of the governing board, cabinet, and guest. We have a study session Monday, October 17th at 9 a.m. We will be providing breakfast and lunch, so come hungry. We've already talked about the agenda, strategic plan, debrief of school presentations with Ms. Marshall and Mr. Pianowski, Madison Center for the Arts update, which will include Ms. Garvey, and then superintendent goals and performance-based pay. So we have an agenda allocated with time that I will send you out this week with your Friday board updates. So we'll have a very engaging day.
Ms. Spear.
Thank you. Forgive me if I'm wrong on this, but my understanding is that the financial report that Ms. Garvey is an action item and we must approve it.
Oops. Okay.
So may I suggest we move back to 7.1?
Let's finish this out and then we'll go back.
Okay.
All right.
Ms. Garvey, you had us enthralled, so we forgot.
All right. Other suggestions on the agenda
for the study session? Any suggestions?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be busy. Okay. And then October 25th, we will have You Make a Difference Shining Star with MTA Rose Lane and a Rose Lane Schools Showcase. We will again be hearing from Ms. Garvey on a bond and override report. And we have many, 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 many policies from Ms. Marshall. So we have some first reads and some second reads. We will get the policies and all backup material to you in advance. And November 8th, we will continue with our policy information, and then we will also hear from Mr. Pianowski with a state assessment update. We should have all the cut scores and information and letter grades by then, so we have a placeholder on that. We're optimistic we'll be able to present it to you. Though, of course, in the school presentations, we received a lot of our very informative map data.
Okay. Any questions about the future agenda? Alrighty, now let's move back to item 7.1. And can I have a motion to approve the financial report?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the 21-22 annual financial report and authorize publication of the district-wide summary per state statute.
Motion by Ms. Kazi. Do I have a second?
I will second that motion.
Second by Ms. Spear, and thank you for catching my mistake. Please vote. Ms. Gresham, how do you vote?
Oh, I vote aye. Thank you.
All right, the motion has been approved. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Spear and Mr. Holcomb, second. Please vote.
And one more time, I vote aye.
We are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.